In today's video, I'm going to share 3 of my top favorite magic mushrooms. Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name's Fola, and here on Deep Mind Squared, we talk all things magical practices and altered states. And super excited to be sharing a bit with you today about my top 3 psilocybin strains. So magic mushrooms, those psychedelic fungi that are becoming more and more common, language and usage across the world right now. And I just wanted to share a bit about my experiences and maybe give some information if you're curious about exploring some of this world. So of course, the information in this video is for harm reduction purposes and education. So don't take what I say as gospel truth. You need to do your own research. And the adage of start low, go slow, I think can be a wonderful thing to remember, especially when you are starting into the world of psychedelics or altered state experiences. And I have lots of other videos on the channel that you can look into, maybe why you might want to start using psychedelics on your own healing journey. But here today, just the top 3 that I found and share a little bit about them. Before we get started, I invite you to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're updated on future video releases. And let us know in the comments, what's your top mushroom? What type of psychedelics are you curious about trying, or ones that you've had maybe a very magical experience or even a not so great experience. So the first mushroom I want to just talk about, which would probably be number 3 on the list, is the golden teacher. This is a pretty basic mushroom, kind of that beginner psychedelic explorer mushroom. You've probably heard of it. A wonderful medicine to use because it is very gentle and mild for the most part. You can, increase the dose or take a micro dose depending on what your effects are looking for. And I found this one very helpful in terms of microdosing and also larger dose journeys. So it's something to explore, to be open-minded to. These little golden teachers have a lot to share, and I feel like it can be a great way to start to relate to the mushroom from a spirit plant medicine role. So spirit plant medicine meaning, that each of these mushrooms have a certain personality. They have their own kind of way of being, and it's through the connection, through these journeys that we're able to really make relationship or build relationship with these fungi. So golden teacher is one that can just really ease us into a sense of connection to something more than ourselves, this world beyond the veil and sometimes we just aren't really able to open up to. And I really, when I think of golden teacher, kind of see them, and I mean a lot of mushrooms, but for some reason golden teacher specifically as these little alien kind of galactic beings wandering around. And that's just how it comes to a sense of understanding for me. So whatever it looks like for you. But I've definitely had a lot of beautiful experiences, some way more intense than others on, doses even up to 2.3, where it has been pretty intense if that's something that you're looking for. But otherwise, starting at a low dose, it can ease you in. I feel like there are oftentimes a lot of perceptual changes that happen. The way I would describe it for myself is it's more like a texture and a shift in the depth and perception of what is in my reality. Sometimes though, I've also had fractal sort of appearances, but in closed-eyed visuals, so behind the closed eyes at those higher doses. So golden teacher, I think, is a really great mushroom to start, and I would say that's on my top 3 list. So let's get into the second mushroom strain, and this would be Great White Monster. Now this strain kind of have a funny story. The time I went into more of a microdose journey with it. The first time I'd actually heard of it was with a friend, and we were gonna go and dive into this and didn't realize the name on the actual package. What I thought it said was Great White Mother. And so this just became an inside joke for us. It's this mother wants to hold us and engage with us. And it definitely felt like that on that journey. There was this sense of the space around me, almost as if it was a box, this container is how I would describe it. And I could see almost layers between, I guess, this container, if any of that makes any sense. But it was actually with this particular mushroom that I was able to really come into a communion of how the mushroom can support healing, which I find interesting because this particular strain of mushroom, which I believe is a combination from what I read online of Puerto Rican strain and an A-type strain or something like that. I'm not a mycologist, so forgive me on the languaging there. But this mushroom has a lot of therapeutic benefits, especially at like lower doses for anxiety and depression. So that would make sense. It can be pretty intense. It's a bit more potent. We got like some more potent strains like penis envy and so forth. And then we have the more gentler strains like the golden teacher I mentioned earlier. This great white monster strain can be pretty intense, especially at higher doses. So just being aware of that if you decide to explore it. Definitely curious to see what larger dose journeys of this mushroom can do in my experience, but there's just something for myself around really being able to see and sense, and then to also draw forth from that space. Because in the journey, particularly this first journey with this strain of mushroom, there was an ability to create and pull the information from like the afterworld or otherworldly spaces to then translate it into the physical world. So I'm really curious to see how that can also support all healing and developing one's ability to share information. And then finally, number 3 or number 1, I guess depends how you perceive it. This would have to be my ultimate favorite, is the Mazetapac mushroom. And interestingly enough, this one has just, for the most part, come into my life over the past several months. You know, it's funny how like psychedelics and other forms of magical practices, when it is time, they say like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it's like same thing with all these experiences. When it is time, and it was time, then this mushroom showed itself to me. And I would have to say that this is like my number 1 mushroom at this point. Again, there are like so many different strains, so I don't want to lock myself in a box. But at this point, it's been so beneficial in like the large dose journeys and microdosing as well. And this particular mushroom, the Mazetapac, actually comes from the areas in Mexico where the Mazatec people or indigenous peoples lived. And the Mazatapec tribes, I hope I'm saying it correctly, were the ones that basically brought the magic mushroom psilocybin into the Western world, they say. So just recognizing the ancestral pieces, the historical pieces of this mushroom. And for myself, for whatever reason, I've been like through various different teachings and learnings from that like central space on the geographic world map that we live on. And I wonder why that is, but I felt this intense connection before even taking this plant, just seeing the name. It was like, oh wow, like that I know has a lot to show me, and there's some healing that wants to take place. And particularly this mushroom, which oftentimes people say is not a very intense mushroom. Obviously, it depends on the dose. It could be considered a more beginner dose or a beginner mushroom strain to try. And also that it helps with really connecting to the self and also like spiritually connecting, which probably makes sense why it would be something that appeals to me. When I was reading about this particular mushroom, I really liked what it said about this mushroom being able to support with like seeing the universe and exploring the self. Because this is definitely how I would describe my like larger dose journey sort of experience, especially the first one with this particular mushroom, where it was just not an overwhelm, but sometimes the information that was coming in was just so intense, and that I legit would see how it affected me from like a microcosmic level and a macrocosmic level. So meaning the inner world, my like thought process, my emotions, my body, and also from the space of, okay, here's the entire universe. At one point I remember like seeing as if in my carpet, like just the entire like solar system and the stars, this galactic sort of energy just emerging from the carpet. And it was a very beautiful, just mind-opening experience for me, because I was aware where I was for the most part, but then at times not. So there's a lot of powerful potential with this particular mushroom. I feel like when microdosing, it really does get to the depths of issues, and it really starts to impact like the physical reality around oneself, which I think all mushrooms do, but particularly for me, Mazetapac seems to have this like really deep healing internally. So if that's something you're curious about, I definitely would recommend Mazetapac strain as one to possibly consider. And just to reiterate, obviously, these are my 3. At this point, I think we have to have an open mind. You know, you might come and go from the mushroom strains or different psychedelics and plant medicines that you enjoy, but you need to figure out what works for you and be willing to experiment and go slow with that experimentation, right? Do it in a safe way. Again, this is harm reduction. Obviously, I'm not encouraging illegal substance use. Many places in the world, these plants are accessible and are legal. So, you know, there's ways to go around that, but you need to check in with where you are, where you live, and what feels right for you and your body, because not like psilocybin and psychedelics definitely aren't for everyone. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, feel free to let us know in the comments below, what is your top mushroom strain? What experiences have you had? And if you have any suggestions for other videos, feel free to let us know in the comments as well. And until the next time, folks, I will see you again soon.